So we know Dr. Sam Kamau is sitting next to him. He's a political analyst, and lawyer Peter Wanyama right next to me as we discuss the shock murder of IEBC's key ICT official. His body having found today. Chris Msando, you're all welcome to the program. Mr. Spokesman, I want to start with you just to clarify various things surrounding his timeline and, you know, the last moments of his life. What more do police know beyond the statement that we heard where you can trace his whereabouts till about 2 a.m. of Friday night?
First of all, on behalf of the Inspector General, the National Police Service and myself would wish to convey our condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of the late Chris Msando. I'm particularly touched because we come from the same village and we are friends. So you can tell how much it means to me. And as the nation is watching, more so I believe those from my village would want to hear what I say about his death, because they would expect me to know. First of all, we would like to state that it's a very unfortunate death, because the timing is not very good. As much as death comes at a time allegedly planned by God, but the timing is not very good as for us as a country, because we are at a moment of a few days to elections. It's a very competitive election, and there would be a lot of rumors and murmurs about his death, given that he's a young man who ought not to have died the way he died. So far, we have records up to about 2:47 a.m. And the records, you know how they are gotten, and that is the much we have. But equally, we have put up our best teams to ensure that we can be able to collect as much evidence as possible and be able to conclude on this matter.
So just for certainty, as of 2:47 a.m. Friday night, where did you place Msando?
We spotted his car around Pangani area, stretching to Thika Road. That is the match. Is
that from CCTV footage? Is that?
I suppose so.
All right.
Yes.
IBC says that the last message they got from him was one that was sent to a colleague at around 3 a.m. What do you know of his last communication? I
won't basically just rely on that. We have to put a lot of evidence together. I'm lucky I'm an investigator. It can even be a decoy, because if somebody murders you and he uses your phone, he can do anything with it. It could be message from him, as they say. It could also be a decoy. So we are open to a lot of facts that will come in so that we compare, contrast, and then be able to make a conclusion.
All right, so you're yet to ascertain what his last communication
we still
was
need,
and to whom?
Yeah, we still need to bring in a lot.
All right.
Yes.
Have you been able to retrace his footsteps to the point where you can determine the time and place of his death?
I would not particularly wish to discuss much evidence on this. It's quite premature, but we would be able to get more information. Whatever we have is preliminary. We are deeply concerned, and the state is very much concerned, because you know the implication of his death, especially to our image and the image of the state.
But just for clarity, even if you're not confirming it to us on the specifics, do the police have a confirmed time of death and a place of death?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. When officers collected his body, then unidentified in Kiambu, on Saturday morning and brought it to the city mortuary, were there any steps made to identify that body? Because it is surprising that he was only identified this morning.
What happened is that no report had been made of a missing body as at Saturday when the body was found in Kiambu. The report by the family or any other family was only made on Sunday. Maybe they have reasons as to why. Maybe either the family was not around, or maybe they thought he had gone for duty somewhere. You never know. But the report was made on Sunday and not on Saturday. As usual, what happens is that when we get bodies, what we do is we pick the fingerprints, especially when the bodies are as fresh as they were. We picked the fingerprints on Saturday, but as you are aware, the offices were closed to enable us. The officers who got the bodies from Kiambu, as usual, as a matter of procedure, took the fingerprints, and that is what has helped us in the day, particularly in identifying the lady.
And now that you've brought up the lady, can please confirm that the woman that they said was in his company Friday night is the same whose body was found alongside his in Kiambu?
What I can confirm is that she's an acquaintance, because there are obvious communications between them, which shows that they are people who knew one another. But we have other details, especially on what we saw on his movements towards Mombasa Road and back. There are also other details that would not particularly tell you whether it was the same person or he could have met more than one person.
Okay, let me just process that again. So you are saying that you cannot confirm that it is the same woman in whose company he was initially...
Yeah, I've said there are some details. For example, I can be with you and I can drop you and then go somewhere else. So there are other finer details which I don't want to divulge, that tells us that it could have been the same. Definitely this other person could have been in his company because there are communications between them.
Okay.
But there is something in between that tells us that there's a person we saw with him apparently, which maybe not be the same person.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Have investigations right now centered on any leads as to the motive of his killing?
There are a number of issues. If we are lucky to get the killers, we have had a number of cases, and in a number of cases we have managed to get the killers. If we manage to get the killers, we'll definitely get the motive. And I can assure you that we are very committed from the topmost level of the country. We are very committed to ensuring that the killers are gotten and are charged accordingly, or appropriate action is taken.
Do you have any suspects at this time?
Not yet.
Are you pursuing the possibility that he was killed owing to the sensitive nature of information he had regarding IBC's IT systems?
We are open to any cause of death, whether it is nature of your work, whether it is envy, whether it is whatever it is, whether it is a coincidence. So whatever it is, we are open, depending on the evidence that will be adduced.
Election officials have asked for their security to be stepped up. What was the nature of security, if any at all, accorded to Msando? Did he have a bodyguard, for instance?
Even me, I don't have. I'm very senior in government.
So you're saying he did not?
I've just walked in. I don't think he had specifically a bodyguard at that particular time.
Have you assigned such security measures to the IBC top leadership? By that I mean the commission and key managers?
Yes. They're entitled for, and for your information, we are remaining with very few days to elections, and we are looking at very closely the kind of security that those holding very sensitive positions would get. I think from the last 6 hours before, I think something has been done, and we are doing quite a lot. Remember, we are very committed as a country that this election must take place on 8th, and by 9th, 10th, it should be concluded, God willing, so that people can go back to do their normal activities and ensure that the country runs back to normal. Because I think it's a very, we have become so political.
Well, Peter, let me bring in the rest of my panel. Peter Wanyama, as I mentioned earlier, is a city lawyer. Peter, your reactions on this incident and where it leaves the country in terms of election preparations?
Thank you very much, Anne. I think from where most of Kenyans are looking at this issue is that the death of Chris has really affected the country. It's something which has been covered widely in the media, including the international media. So it's something which I think the police should take seriously in terms of investigating to assuage Kenyans that it is not death which occurred because of his work at IEBC. What I want also to urge the police is that this is the time where they need to really provide the commissioners with adequate security. You can clearly see it in today's press conference that the chairman and the other commissioners and the senior staff, including CEO, are clearly shaken with this death. So, we don't want to reach a situation whereby the commissioners are worried about their security to the point where they can't conduct a free and fair election. So my concern really is that we need to ensure that commissioners and IEBC staff are safe, and of more significance is the returning officers. We are not talking about them. The other day, the Court of Appeal ruled that these officers are very critical in terms of transmission of presidential election results. So is IEBC working with the police to ensure that returning officers, presiding officers, and other senior managers who they view from that security perspective to be exposed to some of these risks, to get that adequate security. So to me, these are really major concerns that we need to be working on. But again, more significantly is the question of these IEBC data. Because the chairman today is, in the press conference saying that clearly Chris was tortured. So if Chris was tortured, and the information we are getting is that his hand was chopped off. So is there a possibility which the police perhaps need to look at? Is there a possibility that someone has used his password to access the IEBC data and made changes in that system? And if that possibility is there, so what are the police doing in terms of ensuring, either working with IEBC to ensure that, because interference of IEBC data is a serious electoral offense, punishable by 10 years imprisonment and 10 million shillings in terms of fine. So is the police looking at that as an investigation theory, perhaps in an attempt to assuage Kenyans that this death is not mysterious? So I believe that really the ball is in the police. They need to do credible, serious investigations to ensure that this issue is dealt with appropriately in accordance with the procedure, so that at least we bring these issues to rest.
And spokesman, let me just bring you in on those comments, including the fact that we've seen, I believe, the US and UK missions this evening saying that they are willing to lend assistance into investigations into this death. First, will the Kenya Police be accepting this extension of help from the international community?
Yeah, before I answer that, let me mention something. The late Chris's hands are there. They have not been chopped off. I hope next time when we'll have opportunity to visit the morgue and see him, so don't have the worry. Don't be worried that the hands are chopped off.
But the chairman said he was tortured, totally tortured.
I've not denied that. I've only said the issue of the hands was very serious with you, because you are talking about maybe interference with the system and maybe his biometrics. That's
and
what
so that is rumor.
That's what you're talking about. It's rumors. And we also want to urge people not to come up with a lot of rumors, because rumors tend to divert people from the main investigations. I think if you have information, you should pass it over to police. And we are a very lucky country in the sense that we have many other institutions. I would say, for example, in such like circumstances, you would find people start saying that, oh, we cannot give information to the police, or we cannot trust the police. We have the witness protection. Let those institutions be used. We have the DPP. Let the DPP be used. We are open to all this. And if any foreign missions are going to bring people to assist us in this, I think the protocols that are concerned with allowing foreign missions to come would not have any problem. And even as the police, I don't think we would have any problem in getting a hand. Remember, I've just told you that the timing of the killing of the Deputy ICT Director is not very favorable for us, especially as in the executive, in the sense that somebody would look at it in a different way and try to imagine that maybe we are involved in that. I would say it's only a mad person who would want to do that, because definitely you cannot do something that everybody would think it is you.
It's
and if somebody, yes, so it is to our interest that this is solved amicably, and at least something is done to ensure that we don't get a repeat of such like
Yeah,
actions.
let me just follow up on one more question that Peter had posed before I come to Dr. Kamau, and it was this: are you probing, even though you've said his hands are intact in his body, but are you probing the possibility of the manipulation of IEBC's systems? Would the police be conducting any sort of forensic audit on their electronic systems to ensure that there has been no manipulation of data or any other thing?
What is most important is that, first of all, as a police service, in terms of elections, we would not usually want to get involved directly in the electoral system, because it ought to be very independent, it ought to be secured. The moment we come into the IT system, it would bring a lot of questions. And I know the IEBC has procured these systems from certain institutions, and I think they are independent institutions that are able to tell whether a system has been interfered with and what can be done.
Right.
So unless we are invited by IEBC for any technical assistance, then we would prefer that
but that's from other purposes. From other purposes, you're investigating murder. If it's a theory that is worth pursuing, is it something that you want to look at?
Just listen to me appropriately.
Yeah.
I've said that as a police, it would not be our move to start interfering with the IBC system, especially on
no one is saying that you want to interfere with the IBC system. I think the question here is,
excuse me,
is it a theory that you want to pursue?
You did not ask the question, and be a good listener. What I'm saying is that in event we are invited, for example, you can find that the institutions that have been entrusted with the management of the system comes up and says we are detecting something. At that moment we come in, because there are institutions that these documents and the systems were procured from, and they are working together with IEBC, and they must continue working together with IEBC. We don't want to come in as police and start getting into the IEBC systems.
Yes.
But in event that the institutions that were entrusted, that they procured from, that they are working with, the technical institutions, detect anything that is unusual, that would show that there is some kind of interference brought about by maybe a certain action, then they'll be able to invite us. At that time, we must come in as the sole investigative authority in the country.
All right, let's not belabor that point and move on. Dr. Kamau, you've been very patient. Your thoughts on this incident and any concerns you may have.
Well, first, I want to convey my condolences to the family of Chris, who I met on this particular show, I think, a few weeks back.
That's true. He was actually seated where you're sitting now.
Right where I'm seated, and it's really sad that this has happened. But I think coming to the issue at hand, I'm sure the police spokesperson understands the anxiety that this particular issue has caused the entire nation, especially 7 days to the election. But I think it points to the wider concerns about security around the elections, and I think, like my colleague here has implied, that first is, of course, guaranteeing the security of any person who has a critical role as it relates to the elections, and this is talking about the IEBC commissioners, but now, as we understand, other critical IEBC staff, to make sure that they are able to perform their duty without intimidation. But I think there is a second issue that I think you are trying also to address, and that is the question of speculation, because I think there's a lot of information that is going around in the different platforms, social media and other places. And I think one of them is what he raised, that the hands were missing or something like that. And you have to know that speculation normally happens when information is not there, but you also have to look at the history of politically instigated, or maybe deaths or murders that seem to have political implications. And what happens is that when we do not get to the logical conclusion, there is distrust on the part of the public, and I think there are so many questions that keep coming up. But what we are seeking from the police, I think first is the assurance that the elections, we are safe, not just the security of the IEBC officers, but also the security of the ordinary Mwananchi, because it is important that this is happening at a time where there is anxiety, and it is not just this issue, but other related issues that pertain to security. So first, that assurance is important, also knowing the measures that are in place to make sure that as Mwananchi we are protected, or we feel secure even to participate in this particular election. But the other thing is provision of information that would help answer some of the questions that keep coming up, because I think one of the issues that comes up is if it is the police who found or took the body of the late Chris to the mortuary. And again, yesterday, I think the information we had is that police are still, involved in coordinating the search for this particular person. So, of course, the question comes, is there no proper coordination within that would help us? No, because if the police took the body on Saturday, as we've been told, and today then we are told of the coordinated search for the body and finally was found. I think those are some of the questions that would leave public that is uninformed to speculate and wonder what are the issues that are happening. So that assurance happens to be very important. But beyond the assurance is to know that there are specific measures in place. So beyond telling us not to speculate, I think it is important to provide, even if not all the information that would affect the investigation, but at least basic that would assure the public of our security and knowing that something is being done.
Good.
Would you like to respond?
He has said so many things. The only thing...
But I've asked maybe one.
Yeah, I think he has said a number of issues. I think he's taking me back to the explanation that I gave. Number one, for your information, police collect very many bodies in very many other places. And for your information, I explained that by the time this particular body was found on Saturday morning and was transferred to City Mortuary, nobody had reported the missing of any person. This thing was, the reporting of the missing of the body, well, the persons was done on Sunday. But I've said that immediately the bodies were collected from the scene, the police officers at the scene took fingerprints of the fresh bodies. Unfortunately, it was Saturday and Sunday when the registrar of persons was not open to that. And today morning, even before the bodies were found, we had already submitted. And fortunately, actually, when we got information that we had bodies that had been taken there on Sunday, we decided to go and counter-check and called on the family to check. But I said even the body of the lady, for example, the results for what we took in the morning were already out and we were able to identify her. So please don't crucify us for that. And also equally, when we talk about rumors, we are not saying don't speculate or don't say anything, but don't over-speculate, because you will divert the investigators on many other issues. It is, and that is why I said we have institutions. We have DPP, we have witness protection, we have even the police. If you have any information that you think is crucial, please pass it to those institutions and avoid social media.
I think part of the concern that I think I wanted to raise relates to deaths that have, let's say, political implications, or they appear to be politically motivated. And I think what we have always seen from the police is saying that we are carrying out investigations, but after a while information just dies and we no longer get to hear. I'm talking about, for example, the case of Jacob Juma. There was so much around his death, and besides or beyond the initial information that we had, that there's assurance investigations are taking place. Later on, you hear the matter has gone dead, and we don't get to hear much about that.
It has ended?
No, the issue is, and that is what I'm talking about, information, because some of these deaths are never resolved.
The thing
or
is
the issues are never resolved, and we never get to hear.
In such like cases where we end up not getting specific persons that are involved, we always put these files before magistrates having jurisdiction for purposes of inquests, and maybe for gathering even more information. And I don't think whether you want us now to come and tell you that these are the number of inquests, but I think if you check with the court lists, we'll find we have a number of inquests that have been put, and some have been concluded. And I beg your pardon, because that is our time, but we certainly thank you, spokesman, for coming on the show this evening to tell us more about, of course, investigations into this murder mystery. We're taking a short break. We're back with business and more as we unveil ballot 2017. Stay with us.